Hey everybody, welcome back. So this is going to be part 2 of our paper cutting project. So if you don't have some kind of a paper cut, it doesn't necessarily need to be a tree. It could be any image you want to draw. Then you need to go back to part 1 and see if you can figure out how to cut something out of paper. So what I wanted to show you today is what I talked about a little bit last time, was the different ways to put this together and add color. You can of course just glue it onto some white paper and call it good, okay? That's one way, and you could just stop right there. But if you want to do something a little bit more interesting, then you can always glue everything down, and then you can start adding the color and just color in like a big thick coloring book, right? And just hand color everything. So I don't know, that light green doesn't show up very good on the camera, but you get the idea, okay? And so just spend some time coloring in by hand the image that you have there, okay? And once that's all done, then you've got a full hand colored paper cut. So that's one way to do it. That's pretty simple, but I don't think you need a whole lot of construction to get that part figured out. But let's do something a little bit different. So instead of having that glued down, let's start by putting a piece of paper underneath it and then cutting out a shape and putting this together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on here, and if you really don't want it to move around, okay, you could put a piece of tape on it, or you could find something heavy, right, and put that onto the corners of it to help keep it from shifting around on you, okay? And then what I want you to do is trace around the outside edge of the shape. So if I'm going to do this green tree part, I'm going to trace around the outside edge of it and go all the way around here. And as I trace around that outside edge, then I know I'm going to have the shape of the green tree ready to go, okay? So let's move this back over here to the side. Hopefully we don't make any mistakes. So once I've got that traced, then I can see that I have the basic shape of my tree there. Let's finish this part up, okay? And so now I can go ahead and take that shape that I drew onto there and cut that piece out. So I think you probably get the idea. I'm going to cut just inside my line, okay? I know that my line was a little bit outside of where the actual black line is, so I'm going to cut inside of the line a little bit to make sure that it doesn't hang outside of the black paper's borders, okay? If you made the lines on your paper fairly thick, then you've got a little bit of room to work with there, and it's not too concerning if you're not perfectly on the line. And once you get it all cut out, then you can try it out and see what everything looks like. Alright, so let me hit pause and finish this up, and I'll come back in just a second. Alright, cool, so I'm done with that now. So let's see what happens here. So I've got that all cut out. I'm going to have the white paper as kind of like my backing paper, and then I'll move that around just to make sure that it lines up pretty well and we get everything in place. So it just helps me to see it a little bit better, okay? So if I feel like I have some places that are sticking out from the edge, then I can look at those a little bit closer and then make sure that I go ahead and mark those and trim those up a little bit. if I was really going to be super worried about it and try to be extra detailed about making sure nothing sticks out behind the edges. So that's one way to do it. Now, if you don't have a whole bunch of different colors of paper like construction paper at home, you could always cut out this green shape out of white paper and then find a bunch of magazines and tear out a whole bunch of green, right? And cut it into pieces and collage it all onto there so that you would have a whole bunch of different kinds of pictures that are all sort of green, and you could create your own green paper that way. And that would be a pretty cool way to actually add the color rather than just a solid piece, a single sheet of paper. So why don't we grab a couple other colors and do the other parts, and then let's put this all together and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm back. So I've got some other pieces of paper here, and let's do this. If I want to have blue for my background, I can do this a couple of different ways. I can put the blue on here, and I can go ahead and trace around the shapes that I want to be blue, okay? But that means I'm going to have this shape, and this shape, and this shape, and this shape, and this shape, okay? And that's going to take a while to do, okay? The other thing I can do is figure there's quite a bit of blue on here, so maybe I'll just leave that blue as one piece of paper, and then I will cut the other shapes out and put them on top. Because if I have that blue there, and then I add the green on top of it, it's going to cover up the blue, so there's really no reason for me to spend a whole bunch of time cutting out all of the blue paper, okay? When I could just spend a little bit of time cutting out a couple of shapes of white, right? So think about that. That might save you a little bit of time. So I could slide a piece of white underneath here, and I can go ahead and cut out the white cloud shape. Remember, I'm going to go to the outside of the shape, and that'll give me that right idea. And I know that's the very bottom of the page there, okay? And so I'm gonna slide this piece under here, okay? And it doesn't matter if it lines up perfectly, right? Because it's gonna be cut out and added on later. So we'll cut that piece out too. And there's the edge out there, okay? And then I'll do the same thing with this part that's going to be the tree trunk. I'll put that under there, and I'll trace around the outside of the tree trunk and have that piece there. And then I'll put this piece on here, and we'll do a little bit of tan for the edge. See what that looks like. Do another one over here. There we go. Okay, so then I'll cut those pieces out, and then we'll see what they look like. We'll put them all back together and see if we can figure out what the best way is to glue those into place. Okay, there are going to be a couple different choices we can make. So I'll be back in a moment. Alright, well, we've got those things cut out now, so let's go ahead and look out and see how we're doing. You know, we could just put the pieces on the top like this, and then we'd have a little bit of black outline. That would look a little bit more like the Polish style, where they actually cut out more of a silhouette, and then they cut smaller pieces of paper that they fit on top of each other and layer in there for the colors. But we want ours to be underneath, so we're gonna try being careful here and sliding these pieces in together and see what it looks like, okay? So it's gonna take a little fine tuning to make sure everything lines up okay, and it may never really line up perfectly when you're doing this, but you just wanna make sure that you have the basic shapes in the right place and that they kind of fill in and you don't have any really big gaps anywhere. But everything's gonna keep shifting around on you. But you just wanna slide these things into place here and make sure you've got the basic idea in place and you don't have any big mistakes going on, okay? So like this white one probably needs a little bit of fine tuning because it's definitely got some areas that are sticking out up there, and I need to trim a little bit off of the side, which won't be too hard. So we'll mark those and clean that up a little bit. And then let's see what the best way is to start gluing these down, okay? I think one of the ways that works is to flip the paper over and glue it one piece at a time, right? So if I turn this over, then I want to glue these onto the back. So I'm going to turn this over here like this, and we better get a little bit more space for our document camera. Everything got twice as big all of a sudden, right? So over here we've got this ready to go. And this actually looks kind of cool by itself, just the actual color without any of the outlines. But one of the ways you can glue these things down now is then just put some tiny lines of glue there. You don't want a whole lot of glue, you want very little glue for this so that it doesn't squish out and get all over your paper. So I'm going to put the thinnest amount of glue that I can and make it nice and thin. You can probably barely see that. So think about where those were. Flip them directly over and make sure that they cover all of the space. So it'll be good if you have some other color behind that. Okay, and then flip that over to this side and we'll cover that space there too. Okay, same idea here. We're going to put a little bit of glue on these lines. You probably want a little bit of glue on each line, but you don't need a ton, okay? So just be careful with the glue. Then we'll flip this over and we'll paste it into that position there, okay? All right, so we're getting along okay. Now these larger areas, okay, are the ones that are going to be tricky because the glue's going to want to start drying on us before we do this. So we're going to put a thin area of glue here and here. And, oh, we didn't trim those up. Let's trim that up a little bit. And then make sure that it fits into its space a little bit better. We'll take a look at that one because I want to make sure that one's right. And then we'll flip this one over into its spot over here. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. You can always give it a check real fast and see how you're doing. Yeah, we may want to trim a little bit on those white ones. And we should do that before we glue the blue one into place, but that'll be the last thing that we want to do. So it looks like we're in pretty good shape. So you might flip it over and just take our scissors and trim some of that away. If you are being really precise about it and that kind of stuff bothers you, then take care of it and trim those pieces in there. If you have a really good, nice, sharp scissors like this one, it makes the job a lot easier. So you can always do a little fine tuning up until the point when you actually glue everything together. Alright, so let's flip this over. We'll put some glue on here for the tree, just in the main parts of it. Be careful with your glue. There we go. Okay, so we'll put that in there, and then we're going to turn this over, and we're going to try to get this into position as well as we can. And then we'll finish up with the blue, okay? So, finish up with the blue, put a line around the edge, right? And then put a line around the edge of all the other shapes. There we go. Maybe even on the inside too. As long as you don't put huge blobs of glue on there, you should be okay. So we'll put some glue along that area there. Turn that over. Glue it into place. I'll flip that over and see how we're doing. Oh yeah, looks cool. Nice. So there's one way to get a full color paper cut, right? And if you need to trim up the edge a little bit, you can do that. You can see there's a little bit of blue sticking out there. Your paper may not always be perfect, but that's a good place to start. It looks pretty cool. Always a good idea to sign your artwork, and we'll go with that. So, alright, I hope you thought that was kind of cool. I've got something else I want to do that revolves around the idea of the paper cut and making something more like a stained glass window design. So we might do that for part 3 just so you have something else to do. But I think this is pretty cool too and should keep you busy for a little while. Alright, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.